Welcome to Silent Screams, where true tales take on a life of their own and nightmares come alive. Tonight, we step into terrifying hotel haunting in New Orleans, true scary stories you won't forget. The night Mark Turner checked into the St. Charles Hotel, the sky was already dark, clouds swirling over New Orleans like a shroud of whispered secrets. Mark was no stranger to eerie places. Being an investigative journalist meant chasing stories in places others avoided, but there was something different about this hotel. The building loomed with an aged elegance, its facade cracked but dignified, like an old guardian with secrets to keep. The lobby smelled faintly of must and something sweet that Mark couldn't place. The receptionist, an older man with eyes that seemed to miss nothing, handed Mark his key with a warning. Room 308, but mind the noise. This old place plays tricks on its guests. Mark forced a chuckle, brushing off the odd remark as local folklore. But the moment he set foot in the creaking elevator, he felt it, a chill that licked the back of his neck. The lift groaned up to the third floor, and the doors slid open with a shudder. The hallway stretched before him, lined with faded red carpet that muffled his footsteps. A single flickering sconce barely cut through the gloom, casting long, shifting shadows. Room 308 stood at the end, its doors slightly ajar as if waiting. Mark hesitated, heart thumping in his chest. He pushed the door open, and the scent of aged wood and something faintly metallic hit him. The room was simple, almost too ordinary. A bed with a floral coverlet, a desk facing a large window streaked with rain, and a wardrobe that seemed far too imposing for the room's size. He set his bag on the bed and glanced around, the silence almost tangible. The tap of rain against the window filled the space, but there was an undertone, a distant hum he couldn't place. Mark ran his fingers over the worn desk, noticing a series of shallow scratches. Carved into the wood marks that looked like they were made by desperate fingernails. The first night was quiet, almost too much so. Mark tossed and turned, dreams slipping in and out of focus, each one sharper and darker than the last. A whisper tugged at his consciousness, pulling him from sleep. His eyes opened to the dim light of the room, shadows pooling in every corner. The whisper came again, soft and almost pleading. "Leave." He sat up, eyes darting to the window. A flash of lightning illuminated the glass, and for a brief moment, he saw a figure standing outside, pale, unmoving, eyes black as obsidian. Mark's breath caught, and before he could react, the image was gone, replaced by his own reflection, wide-eyed and pale. The following day, Mark convinced himself it was fatigue. The city bustled with life, jazz pouring from street corners and tourists crowding for a glimpse of New Orleans' storied past. But even in the daylight, he couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were following him. He returned to the hotel at sunset, the sky bruised with hues of purple and crimson. As he entered room 308, the temperature dropped instantly. The air was heavy, pressing down on his chest. He locked the door and turned on the desk lamp, the warm glow barely holding back the encroaching dark. His notepad lay open, pages ruffled as if moved by a breath. He sat pen in hand, trying to focus, but the scratching sound came again, faint but unmistakable, as if fingers were tracing the walls from the inside. The wardrobe creaked. Mark's eyes darted to it, pulse racing. The door, which he swore had been shut, now hung open by an inch. Shadows seemed to seep from its depths, swirling and twisting like they had a life of their own. He approached, hand trembling as he reached out. The sudden noise of footsteps in the hallway made him freeze. They were slow, deliberate, and stopped just outside his room. Knock, knock. Mark's heart pounded, each beat louder than the last. He held his breath, the silence stretching taut. Another knock, louder, insistent. He backed away from the door, eyes never leaving the crack at the bottom where a shadow now shifted, pacing back and forth. He tried to rationalize, to tell himself it was another guest. But then the doorknob twisted, the lock rattling as if someone was trying to get in. The room seemed to darken further, the temperature plummeting. Mark glanced at the wardrobe and, to his horror, saw a pale hand reaching out, fingers elongated and tipped with jagged nails. Before he could scream, the hand withdrew, leaving only the hollow silence in its wake. The doorknob stilled, and the footsteps receded, fading into the distance. Mark sat on the floor, chest heaving, ears straining for any sign of movement. Minutes felt like hours before he dared to stand. The rest of the night passed in a haze. Every noise seemed amplified, every shadow threatening. When dawn's first light bled through the rain-streaked window, Mark felt an ounce of relief. He spent the day interviewing locals, digging into the history of the St. Charles Hotel. Whispers of a woman who had been murdered in room 308 decades ago surfaced, a story buried beneath layers of folklore and ghostly tales. She was known as Eloise, a tragic figure with eyes that, according to legend, could draw a soul from its body. Mark's mind raced as he pieced together the fragments, the unsettling incidents in the room aligning too perfectly with the whispered stories. But he was no longer just a curious journalist. He was part of the story now. The sun sank below the horizon again, casting the hotel in shadow. Mark returned to his room, every instinct screaming at him to leave. But he was tethered, bound by something stronger than curiosity. The lamp flickered as he switched it on, casting an eerie light across the room. The window fogged over, though the air was still, and a single word formed on the glass, drawn by an unseen hand: stay. Mark's blood ran cold.